5 minute, 5 minute, 5 minute, 5 minute.
5 minute Chit Chatz!
Do you have relationships in your life that you know are not healthy? Listen in as my friend Katie and I discuss how unhealthy relationships affect your mental and physical well-being.
Can you share a little bit about just maybe your upbringing or just things that were put in your life that you recognize, wow, this is not what God intended?
God is just a redeemer and a restorer. And I grew up, I was an only child between my mom and my dad, and they got divorced when I was 2. And I could tell right away, like as I grew older, how that had impacted the way I viewed life, how it impacted the way I viewed men and just trust issues. And as I grew up, just not trusting people, and in my friendships being more like controlling, because I just had fear of just that abandonment, and wanted to know that people were going to be there. That was definitely something that I struggled with all along, and I really started to focus on myself and what I was looking like. And around 16, had I had come to the knowledge of Jesus as my Lord and Savior, but I just remember very clearly just hearing this lie in my mind from the enemy that I needed to look a certain way or act a certain way in order to be accepted.
Yeah.
And that really, I had an eating disorder and just exercising excessively, and I got down to like very, very low weight and just depressed and just had pain like all over my body. I lost my menstrual cycle, and I could just tell how this believing this lie and this fear was impacting my physical body, but I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And that really continued until college. It was interesting because it was people and being placed in a position where I had to interact with people, because I really isolated myself, where I had to interact with people that kind of pulled me out of that. I started gaining weight back. I started having friendships again, but I was still really standoffish because I didn't want to get hurt anymore. I met Aaron, my husband, and he was just like, yes, everything's going to be great, and you get married, and it's a rude awakening sometimes, because we don't think about how if we don't deal with these things before we get married, we're just going to carry that into our marriage. I think as Christians too, we can think that once we become saved, like everything's fine, or we just get this impression when in reality, that's like the starting point. And there's just this work of, God stripping away these things and revealing these things from our past, or even just how the enemy has lied to us. And so that we can be more like him and have better relationships.
So when was that point when you said, okay, I got to change?
Honestly, it was really not until after our first child was born. He was about 3 years old, and I had, I still wasn't having a regular menstrual cycle. It had been like 12 years, and I had pain all over my body. I was just really sick. I was in a really bad place physically. And Aaron and I, like, our marriage was very strained. I could tell there was a lot of bitterness there. And even with Caleb, I felt like this mom that was just strung out. Like, I just felt very depleted and wasn't responding well, and I felt very hopeless. And it was really at that very low place that I was like, okay, God, nothing I've tried has worked. And, I went to all sorts of medical doctors. I went to, I was trying on my own to fix myself. Even like, praying enough and reading the word enough and just all these things, but nothing was working.
Yeah.
Really at that point, we had just moved back to where we currently live. In 2 weeks, like, I met this lady, and it was at that point, like, we started being in community again.
Check out previous videos by clicking one of these video boxes. 5-minute Chit Chatz is about real moms sharing tips on life and leadership. New videos every Monday.